A wildfire in a German forest just started detonating bombs that have been buried in the ground since World War II. In the Hürtgen Forest, near the village of Gay, flames spreading through nearly 300 hectares of woodland reached old unexploded munitions left over from fighting that happened more than 80 years ago. Explosions have been going off as the fire burns, forcing all 1,800 residents of Gay to evacuate and keeping firefighters from safely approaching parts of the blaze at all. Here's the part almost nobody is talking about. This isn't an isolated German problem. It's happening right in the middle of a record-breaking heat wave that's simultaneously fueling major fires across France, England, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, and Hungary. No guessing, no dramatizing, just the facts, the science, and the real stakes. Let's get into it. The fire, an old battlefield, catches fire again. The Hürtgen Forest sits in Germany's North Rhine-Westphalia state. And it isn't just any patch of woodland. It was the site of one of the longest and bloodiest battles fought by American forces in World War II, a brutal, months-long campaign in the fall and winter of 1944 that left the forest floor littered with unexploded shells, grenades, and other ordnance that, in many areas, was simply never fully cleared. On Friday, local authorities confirmed that a wildfire had spread to nearly 300 hectares, about 1.16 square miles of that forest. As the fire moved through the underbrush and old battlefield terrain, it began reaching pockets of buried unexploded ordnance. According to Germany's DPA news agency, explosions could be heard detonating as the munitions ignited during the fire itself, an active, ongoing hazard layered directly on top of an already dangerous wildfire. The response: a village evacuated, firefighters held back. All 1,800 residents of the nearby village of Gay were evacuated as the fire threatened to reach their homes. For firefighting crews, the situation created an unusual compounding danger. Local authorities confirmed that unexploded World War II-era ordnance in the forest was actively hampering firefighting efforts, forcing crews to stay out of certain areas entirely for their own safety rather than approach the flames directly, even as the fire continued to spread. That's a genuinely unusual operational problem. Firefighters are trained to manage heat, smoke, unpredictable wind shifts, and difficult terrain, but live munitions add a category of risk that standard wildfire response simply isn't built around, forcing a much more cautious, distance-first approach in exactly the areas where the fire may be burning hottest. The bigger picture: a record heat wave burning across Europe. Germany's forest fire isn't happening in isolation. It's one piece of a much larger wildfire emergency stretching across the continent this week, all tied to the same wave of record-breaking heat. In France, which is experiencing its driest year on record, a fire in the Landes region on the southwest coast forced more than 500 people to evacuate the town of Luglan, one of several fires burning across the country this week, including in normally cooler, wetter regions in the north and in Brittany. A separate historic fire near Bordeaux the previous month had already pushed 250,000 people from their homes. In central England, firefighters battled a wildfire in Stourbridge that spread onto a golf course and burned homes. Spain, Portugal, Turkey, and Hungary have all reported significant fires and heat-related disruption this week as well, with Hungary recording a new national temperature high of 39.9 degrees Celsius, breaking a record that had stood since 1948. Drop a comment and tell me, had you heard about old unexploded bombs being a wildfire risk before this video? If you want more fact-checked breakdowns of disasters as they unfold, subscribe to the channel. It's free, and hitting like genuinely helps this reach more people. Let's push for 5,000 likes on this one. Meteorologists and climate scientists tracking this wave of fires point to a fairly direct chain of cause and effect. Human-caused climate change is intensifying and lengthening heat waves across Europe, a continent that's warming roughly twice as fast as the global average since the 1980s. That extra heat dries out vegetation and soil far more severely than a typical summer, turning forests and grasslands into far more flammable fuel than they would otherwise be. Countries across northern and central Europe are also, in a very literal sense, not built for this. Much of the region's infrastructure, from building design to limited air conditioning availability, was developed for long, cold seasons and comparatively mild summers, leaving both people and emergency response systems less prepared for extreme heat events than regions that deal with this kind of heat every year. That combination, drier fuel plus systems less equipped to handle the consequences, is a significant part of why this particular heat wave has translated into such a widespread, simultaneous wildfire emergency across so many countries at once. Firefighters in the Hürtgen Forest continue working to contain the blaze while navigating the unexploded ordnance hazard, a process authorities haven't given a specific timeline for resolving. Residents of Gay remain evacuated until officials determine it's safe to return. Across the wider region, forecasters have not indicated an immediate end to the heat wave driving fires in France, England, Spain, Portugal, Turkey, and Hungary, meaning fire risk is expected to remain elevated across multiple countries for at least the coming days. Most wildfires are dangerous because of what they burn right now: homes, forests, power lines. The fire in the Hürtgen Forest is a reminder that some landscapes carry danger that was buried and, in a sense, forgotten decades ago, waiting for exactly the right conditions to bring it back to the surface. More than 80 years after the fighting there ended, a heat wave and a spreading fire were enough to make that old battlefield dangerous again, in a way nobody fighting this fire expected to have to plan for. Subscribe so you don't miss the next update on this story. Leave that comment below. Had you heard about old unexploded bombs being a wildfire risk before this video? 5,000 likes on this one. Let's go. See you in the next one.